Aloha. As you probably know, my name is Joshua, and you're most likely watching this video because you have responded favorably to having a somatic playdate with me. And I'm really excited about that. Or you may have just stumbled upon this video. Either way, I'd like to introduce you a little bit to what I mean by a somatic playdate and what I'm talking about with these regenerative embodiment practices that I am excited to share with you. And so, in its simplest, our somatic playdate is just going to be a time where we're going to play some breathing and movement games that feel really good most of the time and leave you feeling healthier and more relaxed and inspired. And we might meet patches of emotional or physical discomfort along the way, some psychological resistance along the way, but we're going to have fun with it and bring an attitude of playfulness and curiosity. And ultimately be enriched by whatever shows up on our play date, because that's what we do from our holistic perspective. And, you know, in a more scientific way, I can say that this somatic approach to holistic human thriving is about enhancing the depth and quality of coherence between the physical and the emotional and the mental bodies that make up a whole individual human being. And when we play with these really simple somatic inquiries and games and vocal activations and things like that, then we're playing our way into a more holistically coherent frame of reference from inside of our bodies. But what do we mean by holistic? Well, that's been the sort of focus of my academic and professional curiosity for a long time. And what I mean by holism is the ability to perceive and interact with systems instead of objects. It looks at both the parts and the relationships between the parts to better understand the whole. And holism understands that every identifiable system in this living universe is both embedded within a greater whole and houses within itself lesser wholes. And our body is our center point for all of this experience. So in holism, we see all these nested holes. So my body is nested within a community. There's a whole sort of hive organism that is my community. And my community is embedded within an ecosystem. And there's forests and trees and resources moving through that ecosystem. And that ecosystem is embedded within a larger ecosystem, and not embedded within the biosphere, right? And our biosphere of Earth is embedded within the solar system that's rotating around the sun, and our solar system is embedded within a galaxy that is swirling amongst other galaxies in this galactic watershed, and that is embedded within that watershed, and then that watershed is embedded within many galactic watersheds that make up the sort of observed universe. So those are all these nested holes going out. But we also have nested holes going in. Our own physical body is one whole unit of consciousness and relatively autonomous. But inside of it, it's a whole family of organs, right? And the heart is whole. We can distinguish that there's a whole heart there, and it just beats. And there's a whole set of lungs and a whole liver. And so these organs are all whole within themselves, but they're parts of a greater whole. And then within those organs, there are tissues. Within those tissues, there are cells. And within those cells, there are atoms. And within those atoms, there are quarks. And it just keeps going, right? And I think it's important that we understand that while we're bringing a really playful attitude and a really joyous and curious experimental frame of reference to our time together, that it's coming from a deep understanding of the holistic nature of the universe, the systems nature of life as we know it, right? And where dualism wants to separate apparent opposites in some zero-sum game of competition with each other, holism embraces polarities in the spirit of synthesis and integration. So we meet whatever we meet, whether it's pleasurable or it's uncomfortable, as a part of the essential holistic experience that we're having, and we welcome it with regenerative curiosity, regenerative love, a spirit of regenerative playfulness and trust in life. We're entering into an inquiry into our bodies deeply, into how we feel physically and emotionally. And I really, truly, deeply believe that we are nearing a breaking wave moment in a global holistic renaissance. We're going to see the recognition of this holistic approach to meeting human and non-human needs as simply much more elegant. We're going to be in these creative flourishing that I think is going to wash across the genome of humanity, helping us to implement radical shifts in the ways that we organize ourselves culturally and economically into much more regenerative ways. It's where we're headed, fam. And that revolution is actually going to emerge from inside those of us who are intimately experimenting with and practicing living holistically, starting at the simplest laboratory we have, which is our body, heart, mind, our being, and our relationships, our most intimate relationships. This is the laboratory where we can discover through experimentation and direct curiosity and observation and trying things out and seeing how it feels. We can cultivate a more holistic attitude, and we can cultivate more regenerative coding in our DNA, right? And, as we do this, we experience more holistic wellness in our bodies. And the regenerative embodiment practices, the reps, are very simple games that we can play anywhere, anytime, technically speaking, to help cohere the body and the heart and the mind and the spirit. And the more coherent I am on those interior levels of my being, then the more of a coherent agent I am in the systems that I'm a part of that are bigger than me, right? My inner equilibrium dictates my capacity to be of service in a way that is ponno, that is balanced, that is harmonious out in the world. And so in a spirit of playful curiosity, we become more consciously present with our experience at these levels. We get out of the head. We depose the sort of fascist dictatorship of the mind over the body, and we let the body take the lead. And we listen to the body, and we find the places where our movement has been stuck, and we gently open up and resource those places in us so that we can repattern ourselves in a more holistic and regenerative way, right? And we're going to be observing and consciously playing with our experience of the breath. We're going to be consciously breathing more consciously than either of us may generally breathe. We're going to put a focus on taking deep, slow, easy, long breaths. Because the more we do this is the organic priority. This is what we're all learning how to do. We all have room to learn more about how to inhabit our breath with more awareness. Because the deeper my breath is, the more relaxed I am. The more relaxed I am and oxygenated I am, then the more creatively responsive I am. The more observant I am, the more veridical my perceptions are of the world. So we're working with the breath. We're also working with the voice, because the healing journey of a human being essentially awakens the voice as the expression of our innermost truth, as a boundary setting energy. We work with the frequency of our voice, with the depth of our voice, with the breath underneath our voice. We learn to allow this exquisite animal body to make sounds that are pleasurable or authentic, right? We work with the breath, we work with sound, and we work with movement. We're going to be trying some movements out. We're going to be not just learning how to move a certain way, but being invited to try something out and find little dimensions of it and how it feels. Really play with it and work with it for ourselves, whether it's the bounce or some hip movement or some spinal undulations and gyrations that we're working with, so that we can be cohering, releasing passive tension from the physical body and physically cohering the spine as the superhighway of all the information of our nervous system, and dropping the root of our movement deeper into our bodies. We're going to be working with our feelings, how it feels kinesthetically, how it feels in the body at a level of sensation, and also the emotional feelings. What emotions are we noticing coming alive as we open up a place that's been passively tense, holding stored information in the physical structure, that in the release of that, we're going to be in contact with emotions that have been stored there too. Not trying to look for any pain per se, but as we sensitize ourselves to the pleasure, as we cohere our bodies, we're going to notice, and we're going to welcome with love and gratitude whatever arises in the space of our togetherness. A sense of invitation and curiosity. We're going to express with our voice the genuine quality of that experience. That can feel very vulnerable for some people. We're often shut down from expressing our inner experience for fear of who might hear and what they might think about us. And this is one of the great limiting factors on many people's journey of regenerative and holistic healing. But we're going to let all that go for 30 minutes. And in addition to working with our breath, with our vocalization, with our movement, with our feeling, we're also going to work with our attitude towards what is arising. We're going to cultivate a loving and grateful attitude, because a loving and grateful attitude is the sort of core unit of a regenerative attitude. If you can meet whatever is arising with an attitude of appreciation, which is an acceptance, a welcoming of, and to radiate love, aloha, which is literally physically just the presence of the breath in Hawaiian, aloha, which means love. If you can bring the presence of the breath and the attitude of aloha to whatever is arising, well then your creative genius can discover all new options, all new opportunities, that when your body and your emotions are tight and your mind is tight and your breath is shallow, you're not going to find those options standing at the same juncture in your life. We're learning how to shake loose the passive tensions, inhabit a more dynamic physical and emotional and mental structure. It still has structure, but it has a holistic structure, and they hang together with more coherence. Mind not divided from body, divided from heart. This is what we cultivate, is this coherence through these practices. And when we're essentially preening our nervous system, we're preening our energy body, we're clearing out stuff that's been sticking to us and coming to a more relaxed baseline. We come home to the present moment, to this here now and how it feels to be here. And with an attitude of love and gratitude and a sensitivity and a tenderness. And these simple practices, these deceptively simple movements done repeatedly and with inquiry, these breaths, oh, these sounds, oh, so simple. And yet, just like anyone who does daily push-ups grows their core strength of their physical body, so will our regular practice of these simple somatic games strengthen our holistic core stability, our sense of holistic wellness over time. And the more you do these little things, these little shakes, these little hip sways, the more you do these things, sprinkled throughout the day, not necessarily as a big event all the time, but just a little bit here and there, the better you feel. The more you do it, the better you feel. And so that's guaranteed. The more you do it, the better you feel. But if you don't do it, you can't feel better from it. Knowing that it's possible doesn't help really. You have to do it regularly, and that's a whole retraining. And the cool thing is that there's no collateral sort of damage. There's no side effects. It can't make your life any worse. It can make certain moments awkward. If somebody sees you like shaking your hips a little bit in line at the store, there could be an awkward interaction. But it's actually making you feel better, and it's making your body stronger and more coherent. And so it's okay. It's actually okay if other people misunderstand and feel uncomfortable about their misunderstanding of seeing you do what feels good and right to your own body. Just wanted to remind you of that and say that. So there's no way for you to hurt yourself doing this unless you really try. I think you'd have to try really hard. But there's a catch to all this. Because as much as you'll get better and better every day, just after having spent a half hour with me and trying a few weird things, if it feels good, keep doing it until it cracks open for you and it feels really good. Because it just feels better and better. Really, as an arc. There are plateaus in the journey, like any journey. But there's a catch here. The catch is that you got to play by the rules. The catch is that right now, all of us are playing by rules that are unconscious for us. We're playing by all these unconscious tension patterns in our bodies. And so you're already playing by a set of rules, whether you're consciously aware of them or not. And in order to get the most out of this experience, you just have to agree to really do your best to follow the guidance. You're not going to do it perfectly, and it's not about doing it right or wrong. It's just about trying it. It's about surrendering your control for 30 minutes and letting yourself just be guided into a mystery, something you've never tried quite like this before with a creature like this before. You've just never done that. Whether you've tried bouncing or gyrating your hips or breathing or whatever, you've never done it with me in a one-on-one personal setting, likely, if you're receiving this invitation. And so I invite you to come try it, to go all in on just letting it be weird and uncomfortable, but new, because that's how we're here to interrupt these unconscious patterns and to play with and insert more regenerative patterns in their place. And then notice how we feel. Run the experiments for ourselves. But we're playing a game that has specific rules, like try to keep your legs from straightening for the whole rest of this time. They're going to be bent. They're going to be at least 2 inches below your normal standing height for the rest of this journey. See if you can do that. Try it. And if you notice yourself up, I might remind you to come back down. Because that's how I got the results that I got from these games, is by learning how to play them and then listening and learning how to share them. Because I was a PE teacher in one incarnation, just out of my undergrad for 7 years. I love facilitating play and games. It's something that anyone who knows me deeply has gotten a chance to witness at some point, and it's where I shine and thrive. And within each of us, there is an ancient child. Within each of us, there's a part of ourselves that has been neglected within. There's a spirit of playfulness that can emerge, that's actually essential to our regenerative wellness, coming to life with an attitude of innocence. An innocence which just meets what arises, which I can't decide what arises for me. I can only decide how I meet it. I can only decide how deeply I'm going to breathe before I respond. I can only decide how playfully I can meet it, how generous and charitable I can be in my mind with the people and the situation, how much trust and faith that I place in the larger process of life. And the more that we play with these somatic and emotional games, these vocal games, the more we activate this more regenerative coding in our DNA, the faster our bodies heal. I've grown 5/8 of an inch or more, probably closer to 3/4 now over the last 2 years. I've physically grown over the last 2 years, and they were some of the hardest 2 years of my life. And so I want to encourage you, especially if you're feeling hopeless, that these are very simple things that might just change your life forever. And I just want to offer them for free. I want you to receive them. I love sharing them, and it's healing for me to be in the space with another person who's sharing in these practices. And so please receive this from me if you're willing. And let's fuck around. Let's fuck around and find out, fam. All right. So having listened to this whole video, I'd like you to send me a message that says, let's fuck around and find out. That's how I know that you've done your homework and we can schedule our time together. Okay. Aloha. Take care.